Hello and welcome. You're viewing the Citizens Journalist podcast, Mesa County Compass, that brings you the news that you can use from a different point of view. I'm Ruth.
I'm Lisa.
And together we are Mesa County Compass. Our goal is to create an informed, current, active citizenry armed with the facts. We will be covering what's new to you, what it means to you, what you can do about it, and provide you access to the decision makers when we can. Good afternoon. We're here with Mesa County Compass, and today we're going to do a little interview with Scott McInnis, who is actually a longtime Colorado politician. He served in the US House of Congress from 93 till 2005. Is that correct?
Well, I did, and then 10 years prior to that as a state representative.
As a state rep,
Yeah,
yes,
so-
exactly. And then in 2014, you were elected as a county commissioner,
Yes.
and you did term out of that, is that
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
In 23. So, but in the meantime, in the meantime, you have been serving as a director for the Colorado River Water Conservancy District. Is that
Yes.
correct?
That's correct. So that's a 15-seat board. Mesa County, and each of the counties, and it's got 15 seats, but each of the counties has a seat. And so I'm the representative for Mesa County. Mesa County is kind of the 800-pound gorilla because we have the largest population. Mm-hmm. We have the most senior water rights. Now Montrose is close behind, but we have the most senior rights. We have the most water rights, and our irrigation companies here in this town. People don't realize how lucky we are to live here. We get our drinking water right off the mesa, and our irrigation water, which is used for multiple purposes, is very senior in the Colorado River. In fact, senior to almost all. We're probably the top 3 or 4. So so the river district's important. Now the irrigation companies are separate from the river district, but we all have a common interest. The river district is kind of the guardian angel of the Colorado River, and so that gives you a little background on the river district.
It does indeed. So explain to our clients or our
Viewers.
folks, viewers, clients. Yeah, sorry, that's old real estate stuff. But explain to our viewers, please, exactly what the Shoshone Project is all about.
Okay, the Shoshone's probably it is the most senior right on the Colorado River that is non-consumptive, meaning that the water goes in to produce power and then goes right back in. So it's not used. The water's not used up. Now, obviously, water's different than gasoline, but you use a gallon of gasoline and it's gone.
Right.
Water, when you use a gallon of water, your waste, your drain, or whatever, it's somebody else's water. For example, on our water diversions that the big cities make, which is about 500,000 or 600,000 acre feet a year out of the Colorado River to go east, they get to count 1 gallon of diversion up there as 1 gallon. To us, that gallon would be worth 6 gallons because of the reuse down here.
As
So
we
they
go.
get the purest water because it's at the headwaters, and they get it at a gallon instead of taking the number of what that gallon is worth down here. So the Shoshone Project is a power plant. It's got the most senior non-consumptive use, and they call on that most of the year. So it's called most of the year. They are senior to the Denver water rights, Greeley water rights, Northern water rights, called Pueblo. They're probably senior to 12,000 rights that are junior rights. Now that also includes many of our communities. They're ahead of most communities especially out west here, but most communities are junior water rights because they weren't in existence in the 1880s or things like
Exactly.
that. And so the Shoshone power plant, it's really it's significant, but proportionally it's pretty insignificant to what used to be public service because it's so small. It's a very small power plant.
But those
and
water
that'll
rights.
excel. But the water rights, that's right.
Yeah.
And the Shoshone, so what happens is, so Shoshone's here in seniority, and below them in seniority are all these water rights, but more specific to our time today is Denver. They're next in line, northern people like that. If they could get rid of so they have to, that water they divert at the top of the mountain to go east, they have to release water to the Shoshone because they're senior. That water right is senior to theirs, and when they put a call, they say, hey, You don't get that water. You have to release it for that power plant in the Glenwood Canyon. If we didn't have the power plant in the Glenwood Canyon, they would get to keep that water, and it's a very significant amount of water without even having to dig a shovel full of dirt out of it for a new reservoir, because they have the capacity to keep it, but they have to release it now for Shoshone. So what we did it's pretty complex, but simplified is there, even when I went in the natural resources, and my entire at the state and federal level, I was always on the Agriculture, Energy,
Right.
Livestock Committee. So I've got a lot of political experience, plus our family have water rights and things, so we have some background there, and my wife's family in the ranching business. But the point being is that since I went into the legislature at a pretty young age, and actually became chairman of that committee, which was the second most powerful committee in the state house, kind of by coincidence, I was the youngest person to ever serve as a chairman on that committee. Even at that point, Shoshone was a subject. It's been the subject for many, many decades.
Since I was a pup.
Yes, that's right.
And that's a long time.
And of course, on top of that, I was born in Glenwood Springs, and
Of course.
and my mom, I remember, my mom she was kind of an outdoors person, and she has 6 kids, and she took us to the Shoshone when we were little. We didn't know any of this stuff, but I thought that was the biggest power plant in the whole world. I mean,
It was. It was. When you're little, it is huge.
It was, and so even back then, you think of Shoshone. So it's well known, but the understanding of how important it is. So Denver, to give you an idea, this is Denver, of course. Their janitorial staff is probably larger than our entire staff at the Colorado River District.
Oh my.
And we are the guardian angel for the Colorado River, which, by the way, has statewide responsibilities. The Colorado River touches all over the state of Colorado because of those diversions. Even down in some of the farm fields and all kinds of things down there. So we've always been aware, the West Slope has always been aware of how critical that power plant water right is, because they don't consume it, and since it comes back into the river, it goes on down the river for junior water rights down the river, plus the environment of the river, plus the help the endangered species. There's so many pluses for the environment, so many pluses for all our communities, our recreation. I mean, it is critical for the West Slope. Denver not having the Shoshone is hardly a drop in their bucket. But if we lost the Shoshone, it would probably be the most devastating economic consequence that I can think of in the history of the state.
Well, I can't only think of just that consequence for us.
So the situation and the reason that the Shoshone water right is probably the most critical water right on the Colorado River right now, and certainly for Colorado, is because the front range water users, the big cities that continue to build homes and continue to grow, want more water from the West Slope. And the key is, but they have to release a significant amount of water to feed the Shoshone water right, which is senior to their water rights. So years ago, Public Service owned that. XL now owns the power plant. So you have the power plant and you have the water right. We're actually going to buy the water right, not the power plant. But Public Service was the largest server, or the exclusive server for electricity to the city and county of Denver. This happened when I was in the legislature 20-some years ago. And they're franchised, so when somebody like Public Service serves a community, they get a franchise to serve it.
Okay.
And Public Service had that franchise. And that franchise, when I was chairman of the Agriculture Committee, began to expire. It was coming up to expire. Denver said to Public Service, I wasn't there obviously, but Denver, so the summary of that is Denver said to Public Service, we're not going to renew your franchise unless, amongst other things, you give us the first right of refusal if you ever sell the Shoshone water plant, the power plant.
That was sneaky.
Yeah. So they've had that first right, which has put us in fear all these years.
Yes.
Well, they kind of fell asleep at the wheel a little. The city, they never thought that XL, which was the subsequent owner after Public Service, I guess the cities kind of thought that we wouldn't have the capacity for ourselves to try and acquire that right. So, and we did not go after the power plant. They had the first right of refusal on the power plant. we have the first, we don't have the first right, but we've had negotiations going with Xcel to buy this for a couple of years. The problem is, which is usually good government, but in this case, we had the local governments involved were subject to open meetings laws. So in our negotiations, we couldn't, really the elected people, like or people myself, I couldn't be in a lot of those because then we'd have to open the meeting, which we couldn't do. So we had professionals and so on, and they do those they
Had to beat around the bush in
well,
order to get to where you're
well,
going.
and it's legitimate,
Right,
you know.
exactly.
And, so what happened is this was all going on. We of course are aware of what's going on, and we discussed what we're required to discuss. But out of the blue, the Xcel all of a sudden changed their mind and said, "Okay, we'll sell you the water right." This is just a summary of what occurred, and so we signed an agreement to buy the water right for $99 million. And I'll get to that, how we fundraise for that, because we've got the funds almost in hand. So we signed that for $99 million. The problem is that the water right is for power. So if the power plant closed down, and that is an old power plant, now it's recently been retrofitted,
Right.
but if you close down the power plant, and then all of a sudden the right for that water is no longer power and it's up for grabs.
Oh,
And it would go to, then it's essentially would be abandoned. So what we needed to do, and we're allowed to do, we have to go through the water courts, and that will be the litigation coming up, is we're allowed to put an in-stream flow. We're allowed to add that to our water right without losing seniority. So we have submitted, and that's the key, we have submitted that water right also be used for an in-stream flow, meaning the water can't leave the stream for 2.5 miles. Now we're very fortunate because the 2.5 miles where the water is taken out of the Colorado River, run through the plant, put back in, has a lot of environmental sensitivity. So it's a big assistance to the river in that portion of the river. But the only owner of the an in-stream flow is what's called the Colorado Water Conservation Board. Now this kind of is digging a little deeper maybe than your listeners want to be, but they're the only ones that can own an in-stream flow in the state of Colorado. They have never refused to accept a donation of an in-stream flow, which is what we're offering to do. Donate the right to them, although we'll maintain the management of it. That's critical. So that's how we would protect ourselves in the West Slope. If the power plant ever went down, quit operating, we would have the in-stream still preserved and the water comes down. Now that water,
you got to stop because
Yes.
I'm losing it just
Okay,
a little
sure.
bit. Since I'm not, I
Yes.
think water's really important, but, so what you're saying, who, right now, Xcel Energy owns and operates the Shoshone Power Plant, and it
That's
is
right.
not down. But are you trying to purchase the Shoshone Water Plant as well, or just the in-stream?
not at this point. No, not at this point. Because what we do is we bought their water right from them, and then we're going to lease it back to them for $1 a year.
Okay.
So they continue to have the water to operate that plant. And that plant is minuscule in the Xcel
Oh, I
operation.
Absolutely.
understand that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but it's still,
You want that plant to be
It's still a
operating
kingpin.
to
That's
keep
right.
the water rights.
that's right. And so what they do to determine what your right is, and where the big cities are coming in, they're saying, wait a minute, you may have a right for 10 gallons of water, for example, make it simple, 10 gallons of water. But if you're only using 8 gallons of water, in other words, what they call the historical flow, if you've got 10 gallons of water right, but you're only using 8 gallons, those 2 gallons you're not using. You shouldn't have a right to tie them up. Those should be abandoned and go to the other water users on the river.
but
So
that doesn't work well.
Well, actually it does, because you don't want somebody tying up, say, 100 acre-feet of water, and when they only are going to use 5 acre-feet of water.
Well, I
So
understand
they say
that.
you can only tie up what you're going to use.
but I look at it this way.
Yes,
You don't need the use. You
We're-
might need more.
Yeah,
That's
we're
the
in a
historical
drought.
flow. That's right.
So there's a complication here.
That's right. So that's called the historical flow. But to determine the historical flow, you don't just pick one point in time. You get to pick many years. What's the historical flow?
Okay.
Up to this point, including Denver, acknowledged the historical flow acknowledged the water right because they wanted to buy Excel. They wanted to buy that water right. But now what they've done is they've come back and said, wait a minute, in the last 4 or 5 years, remember I said the power plant's been retrofitted. A great big rock came off, hit the power plant, generators, knocked out a generator. One of the generators quit. And so instead of making a call 365 days a year, a call meaning, hey, senior rights, you have to release that water to us, the plant was down, so they weren't generating power.
Right.
So Denver is picking those years to say, hey, their historic flow is not 1,250 acre feet. Their historical flow, and that's actually what the senior water right, the Shoshone senior water rights, 1,250, and that was in about 1905 is the date of that water right. They got a subsequent junior water right we did for the Shoshone in about 1940. So the important one we're talking about is the most senior one, 1,250. So they're saying, wait a minute, it shouldn't be 1,250 because you weren't using that water in these years. Here's the average. And we're saying, well, no. We are using that water. And all you're trying to do is take the water, steal the water from us, essentially, is our position. Now, remember when I say steal the water, that's probably not the words the River District would use. And as a board member, I can't speak for the district as a whole, but I can speak as the Mesa County. They may be a little more polite in their language, but I'm not. And
Well, we
I'm
need
not
to know
out
the
to do-
truth,
That's
so-
right. And the River
Yeah.
District is, we are into this tooth and nail. So our position is, wait a minute, and we've done a lot of research. We feel very confident. But the Colorado Water Conservation Board, so Denver and Greeley specifically, and what's called Northern, which is the water district up by Fort Collins, they're all saying that, hey, remember I said that the Colorado Water Conservation Board, that's the only board that can hold an in-stream flow. So they're trying to cripple us there. They've gone to the Colorado Water Board. We've just had recent hearings and said, hey, you know, you don't accept this water right, and they're the only ones that can hold it. So that's the only way it can exist. Don't accept this in-stream flow water right with the historical flow that they're talking about.
Right.
Here's the actual flow. And they're saying maybe it's 850 or 800 instead of 1,250, which would give them a bunch of free water. Well, on that board of the Colorado Water Conservation Board, it's got a good board, but we only have one of those boards that lives in the Colorado River Basin out of 12 members. But our position is, and again, speaking for myself, the position of the River District is, wait a minute, the water court determines historical flow. You don't determine historic flow on whether or not you're accepting this, and you've never refused one, by the way. But we see what's going on here. You don't have the authority or the right to say your historical flow is this. That is purely defined by the water court, which will be the next step getting the Shoshone. And that we'll fight them in court, and we're confident that we'll be able to prove up the historical flow. So the law is to kind of shorten it. Water gets very, very complicated very, very quickly, especially when everybody's fighting about it. We're confident of our position. We do have, there are different options if, for example, this in-stream flow didn't work. But almost, I would guess, every environmental group, the recreation groups, all the communities have come together. They're strongly in support of the Shoshone. We have raised through our coalition of different communities. We will own it, the River District. We will manage it and maybe co-manage with the Colorado Water Conservation Board, which I think would work out. But Denver wants to be, Denver, who has no right at all, is trying to get in and say, I think my personal view is what they're trying to do is muddy the waters so that they'll think we'll settle and give them some water.
Right.
That's what they're trying to do. They have no right to the water. So they say, if you want to pay us to leave, we'll leave. And the way you pay us is give us maybe the junior right of 250 acre feet, 1,000 acre, or whatever. And so that's their strategy. So we feel, the River District feels very, not overconfident. We've got an outstanding staff. We just beat Denver in the water court's civil court, not the water court, on the Wolford Reservoir, which is way up north. We had they sued us for a $35 million exposure, and we won all the way down. So we know what we're doing. It's going to be a protracted fight. Denver wants something they're not entitled to. When I say Denver, I'm referring to the Front Range, Greeley, and Fort Collins. Those Front Range users, they see this as a way to throw a wrench in the works and try and extract from us some of these water rights. Now, Denver, which Greg Walter right here, he calls this convenient memory, a convenient memory. And he says here, which is exactly right, that the XL Energy provides an excellent example up and down the Front Range to the Shoshone, especially with Denver Water, who seem to conveniently be forgetting the agreement they made more than a decade ago to support the purchase and even help to finance the purchase under the Shoshone Protocol for the Western Slope. That's when they wanted something for us, and they said, okay, if you want to get the Shoshone right, we'll help you out. They made promises, and you're going to have a picture. Just a quick read of this will be much more understandable than the last 5 minutes we have spent. But to summarize, if the Shoshone water right were to be acquired by Denver, it would dry it up. Now, we have one other thing that's very critical outside the economy, outside just the impact it would have. We have what's called a 15-mile reach. The 15-mile reach, it starts in the Tibet Canyon and goes to about Palisade. That 15-mile stretch is a critical stretch of water that you have to release water for the recovery of the endangered fish. And it was an agreement with the EPA years ago, and the east slope benefits from it as well as the west slope. And it gets very complicated. You don't want to hear me go through that, but we'll just say that. But that 15-mile reach is very critical to the environment too, and it depends on water from the Shoshone. And every community depends on water from Shoshone. Every rafting company, everybody, all of it, including leaving water in the stream. So that's why it's such a major battle. And Denver, I guess our fiduciary duty is to the Colorado River. That's our statutory duty. And he mentions that in there. Their fiduciary duty to Aurora is to their developers and their house builders and their citizens. That's where their loyalty is.
Yes, exactly.
And so if they can take it from us, they'll do it. Now they always shake your hand, and they're polite, but they want what you have. And when I say what we have, the whole state benefits by having the Shoshone water rights stay in place. The whole state benefits. It's not just a huge benefit to the West Slope. The people on the East Slope benefit. We are one state.
Right.
And so we're very aggressive. We had to raise 99 million. We've raised about 60 million. We have a commitment for another 40 million from the government. But they did that in that inflationary thing that Biden did. But they went ahead and authorized our money. And then when President Trump came in, and they retracted most of that bill. They went through and cut funds on a lot of that, but they did not cut the funds for Shoshone out.
Oh, good.
So it's still in place, but they haven't sent the check. So with the government, you wait till you get the check in your hand. So we've raised the 90 million, and that 90 million came from, including the Colorado Water Conservation Board, committed to 20 million.
Wow.
Yeah. And now they're about to, you guys are committing 20 million, and now you think you're going to determine historic flow or whatever. And then the River District, we put in 20 million, and then every community. Now we're not taking private money, and we're not taking nonprofit money like an environmental group's money or an oil company money or anything. It's just, but the communities, the towns, we are in. So City of Grand Junction's committed 2 million, Mesa County's committed money.
And
all
CMU
these-
committed money.
Yeah,
I thought that
CMU,
was
yes.
That was
like a
interesting,
million.
and why or how did that come about?
Well, it came back because we're asking the municipalities and the university wants to build a water center over there. And they understand the credit, and we actually didn't ask them. They volunteered to do that, and they fit within our bracket. I strongly objected, and not that my fellow board members have disagreed. But I didn't want Nature Conservancy being. This is not a partnership.
Not being beholden to anybody
And
like
I
that.
don't like partners, to be honest with you, too much. We own it, we control it. The in-stream flow would be donated, but under those circumstances, so we still control it. And we can't dilute that control, that partnership. Most people that get married, most of them are theoretically in love. And the success rate of that's about 50% divorce rate.
Right.
So everybody's in love at the beginning of this and how they want to help. But as time goes on, if being in love has a 50% chance of failure, think of this, like
Yeah.
a houseboat on Lake Powell, doesn't always work out. So,
Right.
so that's kind of a summary. But the most important points is the Shoshone would impact every citizen in the Western Slope in a negative way. There is no positive to the Shoshone water right going to the East Slope. There is no positive out
No,
there.
we lose water,
Yeah, that's
and we
absolutely
need
right.
water to water
Well, we-
lawns and to
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we
Fields
can't
and-
survive
yeah.
over
That's
here without
absolutely-
water.
That's right. Now, real quickly, let's talk about the lower basin states. So we're in the
Yes.
upper basin, in the Colorado upper basin, upper Colorado River Basin. It's not the Bureau Rec. The Bureau Rec does not own these or decides how we're splitting our water in the upper basin.
Now, where is the upper basin?
So the upper basin includes the states of New Mexico, well, the headwaters, the Colorado River. And I think my statistics right that we put in this. I'd have to verify that. I think we put in about 70% of the water for the Colorado River comes from Colorado, for the actual not the tributaries out downstream, but for Colorado, and we get about 35% out. So they had the compact in about 1922 that said, okay, we're going to create the lower basin states, which is California, Arizona, and Nevada. And they battle each other all the time for their share. The upper basin states are New Mexico, Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado.
Okay.
And how we divide it is determined by the Upper Colorado River Commission, not by the Bureau of Reclamation. The Bureau of Reclamation has operating protocols for the dams. They own the dams. And that's where you're hearing debate right now is how are we going to divide the Colorado River between the upper and lower basin in a time of this drought with our new things. And if you guys don't come to a decision, we'll step in and put a plan together. Well, our position is you don't have the authority to step in.
Right.
You don't own the water. But that's what's going on now, the fight between the upper and lower basin. Now, the lower basin depends on those dams, Lake Mead and Lake Powell. And last year, to give you an idea, I think about 4.5 million acre feet of water flowed in to Lake Powell. 7.5 million acre feet, so 3 million acre feet more, was
Went
drained
out.
out of Lake Powell to go to the lower basin states. The lower basin states, especially California, are way overusing their allotment, their share. Each state was designated 7.5 million acre feet, but the rivers never runs to that level. California was pretty smart. They put a sentence in that said not only do we get 7.5 million acre feet, we get 75 million acre feet every 10 years. And so if the river only flows 10 over 10 years, sorry, Charlie, we still get a guaranteed 7.5 million acre feet or 75 over 10 years. You get what's left. And so what's happening is Colorado has not used, we're not using our share of the Colorado River. Why aren't we using our share of the Colorado River? Because it hadn't rained. That's where we get our water. They get their water because of those big reservoirs. And
yes.
even our reservoirs here, and we'll point that out to you. So we have reservoirs like, let me go, the Blue Mesa Reservoir. Here's Blue Mesa Reservoir. And we have up in Utah, the Flaming Gorge Reservoir, which right now that probably has about 83, that's the most full. That's probably about 83% full. A Lake Powell and Lake Mead, which that's what stores it to feed it down here. These are about 30% of normal. They're way down, both of them. They are fed. So when they built all this together, which was Wayne Aspinall, who came out of Palisade,
Right.
of course,
Right.
and when they put all this together, they said, hey, if for some reason a crisis appeared, which nobody ever thought would, but did about 3 years ago, we will put Flaming Gorge, Strawberry, Blue Mesa Reservoir. These are what they call bathtubs. So they're going to store additional water so we can meet our commitment to Lake Powell, Lake Mead, and they can get their legal allotment. That's why they drained Blue Mesa. Everybody was yelling, it's
Yes.
terrible, it's ruining our, which it was. But
It
you know
was
what?
too.
We agree to this. Folks, we've forgotten. This is a bathtub. The primary purpose of Blue Mesa Reservoir wasn't for recreation. It was as water storage. And they're calling the water. And they're allowed to do that.
And I think that's something our listeners need to understand is it's not, I mean, it's all been already committed.
Determined.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you can use recreation as long as they're not pulling the water out. That's
Right.
great. And I'm all for it. I mean, I love it. Same with Flaming Gorge. Thank goodness we've got Flaming Gorge that can release. So we get to choose. There's a big, that's a complicated process too, but the decision, okay, who's got to start meeting, to keep these going. Because the pin stocks, what they have, they call dead water. Pin stocks are the tunnels that you shove the water in to produce the power. And it produces power for about 40 million people. So it's a big deal. Well, the pin stocks, the tunnels, if the water level drops below here, you don't have water generating the thing. And so that's called the dead pool right there.
Right.
So we've got to keep that water, and we're close. We're within 50 feet. Now, we could put it on Google. If you lowered Lake Powell by an inch, it's amazing how much water that takes
How many
to
acre
lower
feet?
by just.
Yeah.
So we have, if you're down 50 feet, that's still a lot of water. The problem is, we don't have this up here. We depend on the weather.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
And so that's why we haven't been able to use our allotment, is because we have to meet the release of this water, and we don't get to save ours. And so,
So, on that note,
Yes.
are there any other projects, water storage projects that we can use or put in
excellent
place?
point. Excellent point. We need to, but now that's where in some of the groups that object. I mean, if you wanted to build a dam in Colorado today, you would probably announce a dam, finance a dam. You would probably be 25 years before you could dig a shovel full of dirt because of all the lawsuits, the environmental fights, and a lot of the fighting we'll do down here. They'll hire people to make sure we can't build a dam up here. So, but
That doesn't make any sense because if we have a dam up there, then it will help guarantee their water down here.
Well, no, their water's guaranteed right now because unless
just
we
drain
Well,
these.
they
unless
can
we drain them.
Yeah, now
That's what
of
they
course.
do.
But if they drain those, you still would have additional water coming in. I mean, we wouldn't that would almost be like the end of the world, but that's only going to happen once, so it probably won't be that. But it could be
Right.
pretty dramatic. Now the problem is, in the meantime, California, which fights with Arizona and fights with Nevada, you look at Nevada and Arizona. Arizona has got the most junior water rights,
Ooh.
so they're in a heck of a mess, and they have to reduce. But I'll tell you what Arizona did. For years now, they've taken their water and instead of using it and then letting what's left go back to the river, they've been pumping it underground aquifers.
Yeah, they've been putting it in the
hoping they can store
aquifers.
it.
Yeah.
Now they're not even sure that they can get it back. So we were all saying, you're not entitled to do that. You're not entitled. You get to use this amount of water, and then that, you have your seepage and everything else. The return flow is what they call it, back to the Colorado. You guys, so we're fighting them over that. So are the other two states. But California, the reason people say, well, why did California get such rights? How did they get their rights? Well, because when they were dividing the river up, there wasn't much growth in the upper states. The growth was in California.
California,
The population, even the gold rush in the 1800s. I mean, that's where it was. And so, that's why California has such senior water rights. But California, they put in some conservation, but they really continue to build, and there's in San Diego alone, there's like 20 million people.
Yes.
And they have like 56 congressional people or so about that, compared to our 8 in Congress. Now the federal government has always stayed out of the agreement between the states. California has always pushed to say, no, wait a minute, Congress ought to rule this because
Yeah, because we've got 56
that's-
people that we
yeah.
can make a difference.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is, basically, and Greg Walter has an article on that as well too. He's a great author for your listeners out there. But, kind of what we're saying is, hey, if there's only 10 gallons going down the river, we ought to each, regardless of how much you're in time, we ought to each split it proportionally. You can't split 10 gallons pretending it's 20 gallons. So you guys, and the other thing is, up to this point in time, they've never had to count evaporation in their, they take their water allotment. On top of it, they get tributaries, and they don't have to count the tributaries. That's like the Roaring Fork River or the
Right.
Gunnison that comes into your river. They don't have to count that. Then on top of that, overriding all of this as a cloud are the Native American tribes, of which
course.
there are about 30. And those water rights will be in litigation for a long time. But they have not been able to use the water they're entitled to. They legitimately, obviously, have a seat at the table. And that has to be addressed. Most of those obligations rest with the lower basin. The lower basins, one of their arguments is one, we ought to share the Indian tribal rights evenly. We ought to share it proportionally, system-wide. And we're saying, no, that's your deal.
Yeah.
And by the way, you should have to count your evaporation. And by the way, your tributaries are giving you additional water. You're getting free water there because we're only getting so much water up here. We can't store it up here unless, now we have little dams,
Right.
like the Rolling Dam, in the Tibet Canyon. Now, you ask a real good question. Water storage. That's where this future has to be. And if we could just figure out, if you could go and clear the this is my word, the salinity behind the existing dams, all of the debris and all that sand that's behind those dams. Imagine if you could go in and clean behind those dams.
Right.
You would free up a lot of water storage
Yes, you would.
and a lot of
to
water
waste,
storage. And people are talking about water conservation. But that's, remember years ago they went and cemented, they put concrete in a lot of ditches to conserve the seepage so it wouldn't leak out.
And done most of the canals that way.
Yeah.
Here.
The problem with that is, a couple, 3 years later, all of a sudden, springs all over the place started drying up because they were dependent on that seepage coming down to help feed the spring. And those people have rights. So there's a lot of complexity in that. And I'll give you people that want to, like the city here and stuff, that want a xeriscape. I see it, and you can go in this community. First of all, you can walk any block in this community and look what happens to xeriscaping. Number one, it quickly turns to weeds.
Yes.
You're creating a heat island.
Yes.
I've got a friend that put big gravel around his house, and the temperature, he has to run his air conditioner all the time. He created a microwave. He put all this rock around. Now, putting water, not water resistant, but don't use a lot of water, plants, that makes a lot of difference. But we really need to think out things like that before we tell people, hey, and by the way, we own the water. We have those water rights, which is exactly why Grand Junction is so gorgeous and all our trees and stuff. It's because we didn't release that water downstream. And some people said, well, let's water less. Let's not have lawns. I say, do you know what this would look like if you didn't have green fields?
Now go out
Look,
north of town.
the interstate.
Yep.
That's right. That's what would happen. That's what it used to look like. Then we acquired the water legally. This is what it looks like today. You want to give that up? And if you think the next person downstream who doesn't have it is going to also save it, you're crazy. They're going to say, oh, we can't believe how dumb they are up there. We're going to use this water. And and a lot of times the good guy finishes last. I mean, you got to fight for your water. And there's that famous saying, which you've probably heard, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. And that's where that all came from.
Or don't mess with the water. You can mess with a man's wife, but you cannot mess with his water.
We used to joke in politics, look, stay away from the wife, the dog, and the water, and you're going to be okay on your criticism of your opponent or something like that. Anyway,
right.
go
In
ahead.
California, why they don't try desalinization is
Outstanding.
is
Excellent.
because
Greg
then you would
Walcher
have that.
has an article spot on. In the last month, Greg Walcher, and I'm going to leave this with you. Look that up and look up the one on the desalinization. Desalinization, the plants, because all their environmental laws and anti-growth and anti-capitalism, all that stuff in California, the desalinization that they have put together wouldn't fill the Blue Mesa Reservoir.
Really?
And Greg goes through all those statistics. It's a good point. That's the future.
Well, and it would help because they
course it
wouldn't
would.
need this water. These guys
But
could
they're,
use
what
it.
they're saying is, hey, but we don't care. We're gonna.
Yeah.
This is what we're entitled to. Desalinization is very expensive. Plus, as Greg, as I recall from his article, the neighbors around there don't want desalinization. That plant, they don't want that plant built. there,
Well, of
that
course
kind
not.
stuff.
It's like the
Yeah.
sugar beet
Yes.
factory. We don't like the smell, and we don't
Yeah.
want a sugar beet factory down here.
So good, Greg Walter article, spot on. That's a we
Well,
can do
and
a
what
whole deal
you
on
said
that.
too
Yes.
goes exactly with the Sustainability and Adaptation Act with the city. Is that's exactly what they were proposing? Is let's take out the lawns, let's put in the fake grass that doesn't last for one, and you create these urban heat islands
Well,
with
you
that,
do.
and then
you raise the whole, and the next time we get a heavy wind going through town, go park up where you can look at, like going up to the mine. Look down at the city of Grand Junction and see all the dust forming up. Those are coming off yards that have taken their green fields out. We need these green fields.
We do.
And I think, and I've got an excellent article on that I will make sure I get to you
Yes.
as well. There's a town in Nevada, I think it's Nevada or Arizona, did the same thing. Guess they're pulling back now because the overall temperature in their community has gone up 4 degrees.
yeah, you can't call it global warming when you create it.
Yeah.
When you create
By
exactly.
that.
Yeah, and we live in the desert. We do live in the desert, but we have the water rights here. If we give up, then you better be prepared to live like living in a desert. You have sand, the green fields that we have here that are necessary for lots of different things.
Forget our farming.
Yeah, and absolutely. And so everybody, and that's where majority of water is used. I think 79% of the Colorado River goes to agriculture.
Yes, it
That's
does.
cattle and all those kind of things. But people really need to think out, because water is so unique. One person's waste is another person's water. And why, if we think for 1 minute that we giving up our water rights, and that's what's happening. The people yelling the loudest are the ones that don't have water rights. And you'll hear people, I heard a panel the other day saying, well, social justice demands that why should we have seniority and water rights? Everybody ought to have equal access to water rights. You know, like equal access to your, whatever. So that's what, and I've talked with folks and I say, look, I know it's the big fad. And by the way, this fake grass, don't forget, dogs urinate. And guess what? It doesn't go on the ground. It goes on your fake grass. And so you have to clean it.
Yep.
You have to have a special vacuum sweeper. And this time of year is a good one when you go out and see some of these where they've taken the grass out, where you can go rake it off, see what happens, see what's in that gravel. They have to clean it all the time. Most people, in my opinion, just from walking through town, so it's not a professional opinion, most of the xeriscaping that's over a couple of years that I've seen, you will see most of it, they just kind of let it go on the wayside. They got weeds and all kinds of things. So I think that's just a very small example. And by the way, grass is, grass is a very, very small percentage of it,
Right.
usage of water. It's agriculture. Now, the big threat that we have coming to us, I think, in the future are the municipalities. Remember early in our conversation, I mentioned that the municipalities have mostly junior water rights,
Right.
and they have the right to condemn outside their boundaries. So what I fear is that the very valuable water rights we have here is that the cities will reach over and try and condemn those water rights and then use them for augmentation, called augmentation or exchange, so they can take water on these slopes and supplement, in other words, dry this community up. And that would, of course, be devastating. And when you start taking water from agriculture, then your local hardware store, your implement store, your grocery store,
Oh, it affects all of the economy.
Sure, the ripple effect. And we have a lot of new people in Mesa County, which is great. First thing they learn is that the water, that the stream that maybe goes by their property is not theirs, maybe on their property, but they
Can't use it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the second thing that's really interesting is just go outside and see how much agriculture is in this county and Montrose County. Now, Montrose County is the Uncompahgre, and they're all. But what's going to happen? Go back to my other point: is these municipalities with junior water rights, they might try.
Well, how do you
and
stop that?
I don't know.
Oh,
I
whoops.
No solution.
That's not a
Yeah.
good answer.
Ironically, there have only been 2 cases like that, and one of them was in Mesa County, if you can believe. And it was as a result of an estate, and there was a water right in the estate. Now I'm just summarizing it. That the only way you could get it clear the title, it was a quiet title action, is you had to do a eminent domain or condemnation. Condemnation on that. So it's not on par here with what we're talking about, but it did happen in this county and the cities. And that is what, looking into the future, that I think is going to be the biggest challenge, because the good news is we do have what everybody wants. The bad news is
Everybody
we have
wants
what
it.
everybody
Wants,
wants. That's
exactly.
And they're going to try to get
Right.
it.
And and as I mentioned,
It's a constant battle.
well, it is, and we're way under mine. Now, our irrigation districts, like the water users, very well run, Grand Valley Irrigation Company, Orchard Mesa, they're all independent. They're not under the umbrella of the river district.
How about Redlands Power?
Yeah, Redlands Power fit in there. We have several of those. They work together. We have and they fight together. So we have good management of the water resources, and we have great irrigation companies in this county. We're very, very fortunate with water. In fact, I said to my wife, I said, man, in Aspen, they're easy to jump on and get rid of your grass because they don't have to water theirs. It naturally rains up there.
Right.
I said, but part of whether I'd ever move out of if I was young, move out of here, one of the things you better consider is look at what you get to use in water.
Right.
I mean, so
It's
anyway.
huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Okay, I want to do just
Yes.
a little synopsis of the power players
Yes.
here. So tell me again the groups that are in play, good guy, bad guy. You could just say good guy, bad guy that we're
Okay.
working with. So your group is called again the
The Colorado River Water Conservation
Conservation
District, and
District.
that by statute was created to be like the guardian angel of the Colorado River for the whole state, by the way. Now its primary focus is on the west slope, but that's the district that I serve on. It's the Mesa County board member. I've served on there for several years, and so that's good guy.
Okay, good guy.
Bad guy, the best way to describe good guy is bad guy. In this particular case, east slope, west slope.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so that's the summary. Bad guys, so
You're
the-
okay to
on
call
the
bad
other
guys.
side, the other side of the on the other side of the aisle from us, be Denver Water Board. Well, really, I'll tell you the cities: Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Denver, Greeley, Aurora. They all get water from the West Slope Colorado River.
And Thornton?
Right, Thornton does too. So, really, those communities. But the leading the charge, trying to get their hands on XL, or trying to force us to give them water rights, in my opinion, I'm not expressing the opinion of the River District, but which I would be similar. But my opinion is Denver Water Board, bad. Aurora, bad. Northern, which is better to say Fort Collins, Northern. And then Greeley, Northern, and I'm missing my Greeley Water District, but Greeley's in that fight too. And so those big cities. Now they continue. Now that's just on the Shoshone. Now when we talk lower states, the upper states in the lower basin, you got San Diego and 40 million people, or probably 35 million people, I guess, that are getting that water out of that Colorado, and they're not about to get that population to, even though they're overusing it,
Right.
to self-correct, which is why you force the desalinity. So that's kind of a good guy, bad guy. Does that help? Does that
For me,
really
it
does.
Well, yeah.
Just a question for you.
Yes.
When they take all of this water that they're wanting
Yes.
to take, what do they do with it? I mean, is it
Use it.
are they putting it in aquifers, or
No, like California, and it's good use. California, you'd have check Google or AI, but I think California produces 80% of the of lettuce, or what do you call it, soft leaf or leaf products for the entire country in the winter. Their agriculture. I mean, I thought Shoshone was the biggest dam in the world, and I thought my father-in-law's tractors were big tractors till I went to California or Nebraska. And,
those are tractors?
and those, I mean,
Big.
they are And so they do produce a lot of agriculture. At one point, they they were like 6th in the world of production and agriculture, just as a state, and all the rest of them are countries, and that's how much. So California, and they have the population, so that's where they're using it. Now, believe it or not, Mexico is also entitled to some water from the Colorado River, but that's complicated, and they're so junior, they don't usually get much.
Yeah.
But and the Native Americans have very senior rights, and but they don't, they're not using it. They're the ones that they have more water than they could possibly use, but it is their water.
Right.
And they're saying, hey, if somebody else is using our water, they ought to have to start paying us money, and so they negotiate on their behalf. And their claims, in my opinion, are much more legitimate than any of the claims being made on the Shoshone water right. But the Shoshone is good. Now, we're going to make this happen. We have the contract in our hands. If we don't get that 40 million, we'll raise it somewhere else. If we have problem here in water courts, we're not giving that agreement up. And we have built exit ramps on that agreement that allow us to extend the contract for the purchase of it. So we have top-notch attorneys. Our staff, well, number one, I wouldn't want any of them hurt. But I'm always telling our staff, for God's sakes, don't put our top negotiators in one car or one airplane. I know you don't think it's ever going to happen, but it has happened, and it will happen.
And it will happen.
Somewhere.
Because
It
it's
would be
lifeblood.
devastating, sure. I
It's
mean, we just
lifeblood.
can't run that. But anyway,
Yeah.
good question.
Wow.
And good question on conservation. And,
Yeah. It's
now,
just so
I'll tell you, these
interesting.
people that have xeriscape, there's, a lot. It's a huge mistake using these big rocks. Put some plants in or something like that. But really, sometime when you're downtown, just randomly walk 2 or 3 blocks and see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So
We've
I've
been
seen that.
hollering about that for quite a while.
Well, and our
Yes.
neighbor across the street is a professional gardener, and a couple of the things that she says is she was going to go on the forestry board, but didn't get selected, and she said who they picked was good, but the way that even the city does stuff, she said they wonder why these trees kept dying. Well, it's because they don't put any grass around them.
Good point.
To, you've just got this tree out here in a concrete,
In a concrete
Yeah.
box.
and it's going to die.
Sure.
It needs the
It's a
grass.
good point.
It needs all.
And by the way, we own this water. We're entitled to this water, and we like living with a beautiful city. The aesthetics of our greenery, our greenways, are gorgeous. I don't know anybody that would say, okay, if you were to pick your choice lot to build your home, would build north of I-70, out there in that desert.
Not a soul.
Not a soul. And especially if you said, we're going to pay for it, you just wherever. They're not going to go pick land up there. They're going to pick land like your yard right here, the beauty of this home and stuff like that. So,
Well, and then when you fly over, there's all of this desert, looks terrible, and then you have this one little patch
Yeah.
of green. Gorgeous.
which,
Well,
by
and-
the way,
and
interesting.
mentally, it helps
Yes,
you to
it
have
does.
beauty around
It
you.
sure does.
And
Yes.
it keeps. I know that another thing they don't believe, but they said that trees help by 40% keeping it cooler, and then grass also.
Absolutely,
30%.
grass
Just-
does. All
To
you
say
got to
nothing
do is
of cleaning the air.
walk on the street
Yes.
in the evening and then walk into a field like Mansion Park, or walk into a park, and you automatically feel 5-8 degrees. It cools it down. It helps us, and we're in a desert town. We need that. You start pulling all this up, and what it is, it's a fad. It's the newest fad, and what we're going to find is we don't take into consideration the unintended consequences of tearing up green fields
Oh my.
to satisfy people in California and people in Denver, so they get more of our water which we own. In my opinion, it will come back to bite us. And by the way, now I will tell you that I have a little xeriscaping, but it's decorative. I didn't go. We have a beautiful lawn, and we keep it, and I intend to keep it. But I'm sorry I've talked so long. I could
No,
talk
it's
all
okay.
day
No,
on
no.
water, but I appreciate your
Yeah,
patience.
yeah.
And I
Well,
need to look that article up
I
on
will.
desalinization.
Yeah, we'll put that
you can probably look that up,
website.
and he has an inventory.
We'll look that up. Put it
Yeah.
on
We
our
will.
And
We
website.
will.
Gray is unbelievable. In fact, he comes to Junction because they still have a home here and things, but Sometime you should invite Greg to come over
We will.
and talk to your podcast. He'd be much better than I.
No,
Oh,
you are
superstar.
excellent because it's
So
it's
informative.
something that's going on and it's crucial, but
Yes.
it kind of gets a back seat when you have other
Now, we have
issues that come up.
pressing issues, we think. We don't realize that the real pressing issue is what we're talking about right
Well,
now.
and
Because we
water
wouldn't
is a-
have anything else
Well,
if it
that's
weren't for
right.
this.
But water is very boring. Most people don't want to talk to you about water unless they turn the faucet on and there's no water coming out, or it's brown or black or something.
Or
Then it becomes
you
interesting.
make it
That's where we
easy
are.
enough to where you can understand what we're trying to do, and this was particularly helpful. So we
Well,
will
good.
definitely put
And this,
that on.
I'm sorry about the marks, but you can get I'll leave this with you so you
Yep.
know the article. So here's where I just draw, these are my little, here's the actual language of the promise that Denver made. So that's kind of, just ignore my little,
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
I should have brought clean copies.
No,
This is
we're
a clean
good.
copy.
We're
but
good.
That's good.
Nope, you're good.
All right.
Well, do you have any other questions?
I don't. I think we've covered everything I had to ask.
You
It was
was
very good.
Great.
Yes,
Well, thank you
yes.
for doing this. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, you've been watching Mesa County Compass. This is the facts as we know them, the truth as we see it. You decide. Thank you.
Thank you very
So
much, Scott.
much.
Appreciate
It's
you
been
being
my
here.
privilege, and it's been my privilege to serve over the years. I always felt the luckiest, had the one luckiest people around to be able to serve the people. So
Well,
it was
keep
great.
serving.
Good year.
Yes,
You
keep
don't
serving.
get to you don't get
You
to
don't get to
quit.